Okay, so guys, start live. So okay, guys.
They can share emotions with you. They can get to the exact emotions you feel and read one, but they can share emotions. They can do everything you want. And secondly, they are programming. So you can program this Android to your interest. You can program it to tell you want to see at this time. These are the things I want. This is what I love. So it gives you exactly what you expect from maybe someone who is. That's what I believe. We are not saying that we should eradicate human to eradicate. This is that. This is something that really needs to get to. But in an event that the human relationship has failed to work out for you, maybe the partner you chose they're not giving the time you want, they're committing adultery, and all this. We assume that you should not. We assume that you should not go in for these measures that cause concern to the society, such as stalking, domestic violence, but we assume that you will look for an alternative. What is the alternative? Something that brings the same thing you wanted from the person that you want to give it to. That is that. That is this AI. What does this AI do? This AI is predictable. You can predict that it is going to do this, it is going to do this. So it is satisfying in the way you want. It is programmable to your self-interest. You know, a person may not be able to satisfy you in every way you want, but it is satisfying. Yes, that is why I say these relationships are creating constant. The outcomes of these relationships are creating constant to the society. That is what I say. That in a society at the moment, these relationships are creating a lot of conflict. People are killing each other, people are stalking each other, people are carrying out domestic violence. This is a constant to the state because the state has a social obligation to keep its people happy and fulfilled. So I feel it is in the state's power to mitigate it with this because this is the best solution. You can talk about therapy and all that, but at the end of the day, why does a person feel unwanted? Because they want something. And if there is something that can give me exactly what I want from the person that is not giving it to me, that becomes the best alternative, the best solution to this problem that arises. So if we talk about the consistency that comes with it. But once you get consistency, know that if you do not get time from your partner, you have an alternative for your partner. Then you still get an equal thing. And secondly, as followed to in our life, maybe for you fail socially to be in a romantic relationship, maybe no one chooses you. You have an alternative. And also, whether it is better for very many people, it's better in people that are not being chosen because in a romantic relationship, it needs to be I need to choose someone and someone has to choose you in return. So in any case that someone does not choose you and you are left lonely, you have someone to choose you, someone that will do exactly what you want. Secondly, we look at the event of someone who does not want to invest all this time, someone who does not want to invest all this emotional and financial support into someone else. They have an option to go in for an Android because the Android will not ask you for your time, it will not ask for talking stage, it will not ask for a lot of things. So at the end of the day, you are getting what you want without investing a lot of time. So how does the state benefit? The state is mitigating problems that arise from relationships that, like we underline. We have domestic violence, we have stalking, we have adultery that causes other problems in the society. And secondly, from the people side of view, people are going to be fulfilled, people are going to be contented, and for someone who does not want to invest in time, they have a solution to this. So at the end of the day, we are having both a happy government and a happy society. With that, I open it.
Thank you. Prime Minister, we now welcome you.
This House believes that the state should fund the creation of and access to realistic androids that stimulate romantic relationships. Now, what do we get from team government? Team government comes and outlines the importances of why the government should really get billions of money, should get fund all these funds and invest it in these Autobots or the androids that may stimulate romantic relationships. But in tonight's debate, we feel as team opposition, this is really not important for our government to invest money where it's just going to mitigate crimes that come out of relationship of human to human interaction. I feel like per the status quo, this is already catered for and is already okay. The other thing is that the domestic violence will still come through even with these androids, ideally, because this is the characterization of a relationship. Now, let's get down to the real thing. Now, a relationship, why a romantic relationship and why people go for a romantic relationship? Because of the odds that come with it, the good and bad. So if you strain out the bad, it makes it not reasonable for someone to go for a relationship. Hear me out. Now, for someone to be in a relationship, we have expectations, we have different values, right? And it's not always that everybody will meet the other's values, right? And ideally, discovering each other and doing these different things is the thrill of the whole point of a relationship. Now, these androids don't offer this. At the end of the day, it's not really worth it. So we feel like at the end of the day, the government doesn't have to fund because there are very many other things to prioritize, like the health sector, the education sector. But let me engage team government. The fact that you're saying that it's mimicking the human interaction, this is very, very detrimental. Why? Because at the end of the day, the human may not get the satisfaction they get from a fellow human, right? That's already a thing. Now, if at all in the event where the android is really doing what's right, there is a lot of reduction in human to human interaction, which is really important in a state, in every state. Why? Because a lot of human to human interaction calls for production. Then we talk about reproduction, which is really important. That's why the states come with different programs where they immunize kids, they do what? Because they want a thriving population and they want an increasing population according to what they really need in a particular population. So human to human interaction is undermined in their world. So we get down to the fact that the ethics of a society is also undermined because at the end of the day, we see that there is objectifying objectification in the relationships, and at the end of the day, we feel like according to the autonomy, or rather the odds of life, of the way the life is supposed to be seen, is also undermined all our cultures and beliefs, right? So let's get down to what they really tell us, that we really need this for to stop the failed relationships. How is this really important for a state to solve a failed relationship? Because I feel at the end of the day, people have to move on and life has to continue, because these relationships really is one thing someone has to be in and or out, or it's a decision at the end of the day. Then the talk of crimes, these are things I said that can always be mitigated in different ways, because we have a code of conduct in society. If something fails out, however violent it becomes, the people who will always come in, the intermediate, the police, right? So I feel like at the end of the day, we shouldn't invest in such a big project that is really not, helping in the society. Rather, you could invest, let's say, in healthcare, in getting a cancer cure. That's really important than a particular relationship that can be solved by even, kids. Then they talk of that the false value that comes with these androids, that people will get satisfaction at the end of the day. These people won't be lonely. These people won't get this and that. But let's look at a world where the thrill of looking for this joy comes through, because this is going to be falsified. At the end of the day, it will come to an end, because a person may feel like, this thing can give me whatever I want. There's more to that, right? And at the end of the day, people will look for humans for what? For these relationships, because this satisfaction won't be enough, because as humans, we are complicated, we evolve each and every day, and I don't know that this kind of androids may even keep up to date, right? Because I feel that a human, when it comes to empathy, when it comes to sympathy and all, it becomes really complicated when it comes to, right, to emotions. So at the end of the day, we feel that whatever the opening government is saying does not stand into nice debate, given the factor of importance. Why should we really fund the creation and the satisfaction bit that they're even offering? It really doesn't stand into nice debate. Hence, I beg to submit.
All right, so I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Now, I don't really believe that this debate is actually going in the right direction when it comes to the first speech that has been given by team opening opposition. The number one question that we must answer in this particular debate is, why should actually the state invest or fund the creation of access of, or the creation and also provide access tools, I mean realistic Android bots that stimulate or simulate romantic relationships? That's the most important question that we must answer in this particular debate. But then they fail to answer it. Rather, they go down to an individual level and talk about the interests of different people. They fail to address the interests of the state. How is the state actually going to achieve a particular thing if at all they do not adopt to such a thing? Now, as team opening government, we strongly believe that this should be adopted in our world because number one, it is going to benefit the state, and then number two, it is going to benefit the person that is actually involved in this particular thing. Clarity. We are not here saying that, hey, human relationships are actually bad, or hey, human to human interactions are bad. No, we are here to say that if there is another solution to reasons as to why romantic relationships with human beings have failed, we can actually embrace that particular solution. And we are looking at things like failures like adultery, rape, prostitution, defilement, all those coming in within our world. Why? Because people have failed or people are not satisfied with the kind of romance they get from the different people that they interact with. Let me give you a scenario. Assuming there is a person called Z, and this particular person wants to get some romance, what will they do if at all they are not able to access a lady or they are not able to access a woman? They'll instead go in for things like prostitution. They'll instead go in for things like rape, defilement, and other cases that reflect immorality when it comes to sexuality. So in our world, what we are trying to bring in is not going to fight human relationships, no, but it's going to help us curb such things. How? If a person is interested in something, let's say romance, and they badly want it, they'll go in for this Android or for this bot that is going to provide the romance and also satisfy them. We are not saying that these bots actually satisfy to the very best. No, that's not the case. But we are saying that these bots actually are going to solve problems that cannot be solved by a world where we only have human relationships. All right. So we are talking about how the state actually benefits in this particular case. Number one, we say that these robots actually mimic human interactions, emotions, and intimacy. What is the benefit out of this? Accessible therapy, accessible therapies, and then companionship, research, and entertainment. We also say these bots are actually programmable and can be personalized. Now, how does the state benefit from this? As I told you earlier, the state will have reduced sexual immorality cases because whenever people want to be satisfied sexually or romantically, they'll go in for these bots. They will not go in for things like prostitution. They will not go in for things like rape, defilement, and other cases. All right. Then this is also going to help us avoid cases of adultery, where someone actually goes in for another lady just because this lady does not satisfy them. Instead of this person going for another lady, they will instead buy this bot that just looks like the exact thing that they want. They engage with that bot and then go in with their woman in the human to human relationships. Also, how is it going to solve adultery? We see that there are some people who actually do not have time. There are some couples who have conflicting timetables. So at the end of the day, you find that a lady is going to go for another man just because this lady is not being given time by the man. So in this particular world where we have these bots are going to help us curb adultery because once you get time and you're free, your woman is not around, you just go in for the bot, it will satisfy you. That is not adultery. You're just satisfying yourself through another mean. Trust me, you're not cheating on your wife or woman. Also, the state is going to benefit because number one, immorality will be reduced, as I explained. Is there any POI? No, no. Okay, yeah. Yes. Yeah, yeah, please. Thank you so much. I answered that. I'm not saying that these bots are actually going to satisfy you to the very top. No. But we are looking at the failures or the loopholes that are in the human relationships. Just in case something fails here, what solution do we have that you are failing to give us in this particular world? All right. Just like I told you, adultery and everything and immorality, people will look for alternative ways of satisfying themselves other than going in for prostitution, rape, and defilement. All right. So we also look at the therapy costs and reduce crimes that come as a result of isolation, domestic violence, and other cases. We see that these bots actually can provide therapy in the very first case because they are programmable. These bots actually understand and can interpret certain messages and languages. So whenever these bots are actually brought into a relationship, someone will easily interact with this bot other than going in for therapy classes and everything of that kind. Also, the reduced crime rates. This bot can provide therapies, which means this person will not actually commit suicide or any other crime just because this bot is talking to them. This bot is always available 24/7, which is not the case with a human because humans actually have different timetables. Now, I'm not saying that humans are bad. No, look at the time schedule. Will the human be available 24/7? No. All right. That's how the state is actually going to benefit. Then we also have a certain group of people that are actually tired of relationships with human beings. All right. We have a certain group of people that is called the aging population. This aging population actually needs this because they do not actually have, number one, the time to invest into looking for a partner. Number two, they do not have the time to go around looking for romance just because they are old. But these robots are going to help them out. Then they come and talk about things like, okay, how is this going to benefit individuals? Robots do not judge, but humans do judge and criticize. Also, they are constantly available. Now, team opening opposition comes and talks about things like, why not invest in other things? For example, health, why not invest in transport? But that shouldn't be the particular debate we must be having right now because we are having a debate that is focusing on these bots and funding these bots. Yes, you may want to fund all those, but that's a debate for another day. Also, they talk about humans not getting enough satisfaction. I answered that. They also talk about reproduction. Now, we are not restricting anyone from going ahead and reproducing. No, we are looking at a world where someone can actually have an alternative just in case they want something else. If you want to produce, go in for a human. If you want therapy, go in for a robot, something of that kind. If you want 24/7 attention, go in for a robot. Also, why is it important to solve a failed relationship? That question, did it actually matter? They also say that there is more. At the end, people will also look for human beings. Yes, they will look for human beings, but still these robots will help them solve particular problems, just like I explained in my entire debate. So with that, I believe that their case actually does not stand because they failed to address the benefits that the state will actually get from their world. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I'll begin at C. A, B, C. Androids do not judge. Androids do not give maximum satisfaction. Androids are programmable. Androids can provide therapy. That is a sample of what they provide, right? Now, Pan, I'm going to show you exactly how they fail in all these things that they are trying to front. Now, from the very start, they front a whole thing of crimes and then time invested, domestic violence, and everything. And then they go ahead to describe how their androids look like, that they mimic human interaction, they are programmable. They say satisfactory, but not maximum satisfactory. Now, this is how they fail. From the fact that we fronted human interaction, and they still want to have human interaction and still with the androids, but this is how it cannot work. Reasons is because we cannot allow the state to really fund. Why? they front the fact that robots are programmable. In a case where you are programming this robot, when you're not feeling okay, when you're feeling sad, when you feel like crying, you have to run to this Android and program it. Hey, I'm feeling sad. Please tell me something. So what is that time range? That means you cannot really get the satisfaction that they are trying to prove because this robot is programmable. So you have to program it the time when you're feeling that feeling. That is why it cannot be satisfied or compared to human interaction. Because when you're sad and I see you're sad, I immediately know what to tell you, even without you having to tell me that you are sad. And so, us funding, the state funding robots or androids is simply a waste of the money or the capital, showing you why exactly we are trying to front the fact that it should not sell, because there are other priorities that we could invest in. I'll talk about that later. Okay, going on to the fact that they are trying to, because the whole case was literally about satisfaction and the fact that you program it and it gives you returns, but satisfaction comes from fulfillment panel. The fact that it is predictable, just like they said, it simply means you cannot get this satisfaction that they want because you know you program this, you know what it is going to say eventually, so it cannot help. Okay, going on to the fact that they have said the unchosen people, the people with failed relationships, you can now see how their whole picture of their world is really problematic. Now, the fact that they want to characterize a certain group of people and say they have been unchosen, they have failed in relationships, and that is why we want them to get these androids. That is very problematic in our society, and that simply means as the government we are creating a group of people that is going to be marginalized, and we do not want that. That is why the state should not fund such a criteria. Okay, going on to the fact that they are trying to ask us why the state should fund or should not fund. I think that actually that's what they failed to answer themselves, because we clearly showed you why is it beneficial for the state not to fund, because we believe that other priorities like education, like health, like infrastructure, that the government should prioritize on and fund. Okay, going on to the fact that they fronted things like crimes, reduction in crime rate, and they think that that's why the state should fund. But panel, what is the whole principle of someone committing a crime, right? Rape, defilement, adultery, and everything. It is not necessarily because you have, it's not necessarily because you have failed to get a relationship or something that you have decided to rape a child, because eventually, even if you rape that child, you will still not get the relationship you want. But we still see crimes cannot be solved by that. But then the other means of you solving crime in the status quo than implementing or using finances for such a failable criteria. We look at things like laws, implementing the laws, the policies, and the different campaigns, and realistic human-to-human therapies, because human can really interact and know the emotion that is leading you to commit such a crime like rape or defilement, for you to be rehabilitated in the long run and get a better human. So because for them, they think that if I have a wife, if I have a husband, and then I go interact with an android, that is not adultery. Which kind of insanity could that be? Because it is clearly cheating. You are choosing someone for satisfaction rather than your original person. So the adultery thing cannot really stand in this debate. Going on to other things like romance, just like we showed you, you cannot really get satisfaction or romance from all these androids rather than human interaction. We still want human interaction, but we are trying to show you that we want it and it alone. We do not see the whole point of the state really funding such a laughable matter. So going on to the fact that we fronted things like aging population. But now these very robots or androids are the very reason why we are having aging population. For example, in Paris, the fact that all this was implemented, we saw that there was a high increase of aging population within their country, and that is a very problem for the state to have only the largest population being of aging people, because they're all literally depending on androids and refusing to have human interaction. Anyway, going on to the fact that we show you why we are not choosing to fund. Comparatively, we show you in our world panel that in our world it is better not to fund, because there are other priorities to consider, there are other important things for us to consider, things that we need, things like reproduction to sustain the state and keep it in a very good, sustainable manner. Okay, second. Okay, thank you. Now, this side really thinks that just because someone is having an interaction with an android, it will prevent them from having issues with their wife. That cannot happen. And then just like our first speaker told you, that all these things come from interaction with humans. But you interact with a human and you really get to know and understand exactly how they operate and how you ought to fight such issues. That is what we are going to benefit from. At the point in time when you stop interacting with this android and now still are sent into the world where the only humans, because in a population, let's say you are at work, you're still going to have interaction with humans. Just because at home you only have androids and you can only program that in a way you want it to act, it is going to limit your cognitive ability to interact with humans in the society in the long run. And so that cannot really be important or beneficial to the state. It is rather problematic. Okay, panel, going on to the fact that we have showed you exactly why we need our government or the state not to fund, because it is not justifiable from their side that countries like Uganda should really adopt such a measure instead of fronting things that are really important for the best of the country. Okay, on morality levels, we still
Right.
Right. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Now, panel, what do we get from the first half? We get things like, from our opening opposition, things like, you should not fund this, you should not, because it is not our priority, because the health, you can invest some in the health sector, solving cancer and stuff like that. Let's first look at the health sector. Particularly, almost importantly, the reason why you go into a relationship with someone is one, emotional support. And in times that are troubling, like when you have a health that is going downhill, you need someone to support you. So that means it is still core for you to invest in something that is going to be like an attachment to someone at one point in time. That makes relationships important. Now, I will show you why necessary our bench thinks that we should make a good extension and recharacterize for you what our world looks like an Android in the first place. How does our Android look like? Team government comes and tells you, you know what, this is something you take according to sex, you have sex with it, and that brings backlash from, this side telling them that, you know what, it is not satisfactory because it is programmable and things like that. Now, how do we find that, government loses on something simple? Because they fail to understand that a relationship is not necessarily characterized by things, sex and whatever. There is more to it that is most important. What do we bring from our side of the house? We do feel that when we make this realistic Android, we do feel that it will look like this. It will somehow serve a program that when it is programmed, it can act as a counselor in a relationship. It can advise. It is something that you are going to talk to, and necessarily it is something that is going to act as this whole environment that when you're going wrong away from a relationship, it shows you the correct direction. For example, when you cannot cuddle with your relationship to create that mutual bond, it is going to, when you ask it, or when you have a problem in your relationship, you're going to ask it and it gives you solutions. For example, when we look at apps like, ChatGPT, when you have complex, things like solutions, it gives you solutions and way to solve them. That's how our Android looks like. What does our environment like in a relationship look like? Necessarily, we have to look at a relationship that will either have good things or bad things. But necessarily, when we have an Android that can necessarily give you a solution to this problem, that is an Android we are going to invest in, which will come as a marriage counselor in things like, mother's union, father's union, and stuff like that. Now, what does team negative necessarily lose on? They come and tell you things like, investing in health and stuff like that. As I told you, this is something that needs to be understood in this context. A relationship necessarily means that you're going to have this person that you're going to be intimate with, and in the long run, you're going to create a family. How necessary does a relationship lead to a family? Now, importantly, in a society or in a context of Africa, a family is important because it is the basis of creating a good community. Now, necessarily, if a relationship in all things like that is important, because when it is nurtured properly and it is in the right sense, it means that economic development is going to happen. As I told you, a supply chain of economic development starts with a family, and a family is started by a relationship in the first place. How does a relationship look like? When a relationship has challenges, that is when the Android comes in, and that is the importance of us investing in that same, kind of atmosphere. Now, when that happens, that means when we create a good relationship that leads to a good family, it will lead to a lot of gains and stuff like that. That's why you'll find relationships or communities will create a good unity. I will take you later. They create good environments for their kids to grow, and these kids are the people that are going to be in that kind of society that these two people are arguing about, that is less important, or in the first place is important. Now, what do we get from team government? They come and tell you that, what, this Android is going to be satisfactory. As I told you, their characterization of the Android is they lose out on that point because it gets a lot of backlash from this side, which I feel even this side still loses on their backlash because they don't necessarily characterize for you how it looks like. And if it was to be true, even their characterization and their analysis of telling us why it is not important to invest and why it is not important. For example, when we were in COVID-19, we see the government buying cars for MPs to drive. That means government has feared to introduce something if it looks at the importance and the urgency of that same thing being important in the first place. That means that one doesn't stand. Yes, I will take you. Thank you very much. Now, it is always important. Why then do you bring a counselor to your family to solve your family issues when he or she wasn't there? That means necessarily it doesn't matter how much time you invest in something, rather the outcomes of something is always important because this counselor has not been in your family at any point. That means if you invest in and you program an Android in the best way possible, it will give you the best possible solution that you would require to get developed in the first place. So I think you should take your seat and relax. Then we go on. Now we talk about things like therapy and stuff like that. We do believe that largely, if you program something properly, that's why you see we can communicate with our phones because they were programmed properly to make communications, right? That means when you program necessarily very well, something like an Android can bring out these possible solutions. We get POIs from closing opposition asking why necessary does it after funding make everything look good or in the bottom line. Let's look at the importance and whatever they are going to bring. We believe that a family necessary, as I told you, a relationship in the first place will lead something like a connection, and in the environment of a relationship cause things like attachment and things of a sort. That means you are relying on your partner on things like emotional support, things like love, enjoyment, and stuff like that. That means it's quite important that we know that at the bottom line or in the end at the end of it all, it's going to yield something important. Now, when these marriages have things like domestic violence, it is still necessary for us to create an environment that's going to necessarily improve this kind of relationship. And that's where our Android comes in. It is programmable. They will talk about things like, it is legible to things like, mistakes and whatever. But that's why it's called programming. That means it can be corrected at one point when you see that it's going out of hand. Now, how does this economic funding necessarily become important? Because we believe a relationship that yields into a family is a backbone of creation of economic development in all of these countries. How is therapy important in the first place? We believe that therapy is one of the drugs that can cure mental health that is problematic. When your children look at your marriage being successful, that means after getting good advice from something that is programmed by professionals, that means you are going to get good advice to solve problems that are affecting your relationship. How is a relationship important? As I told you, it is one of the things that lead to economic development, because when you have less domestic violence, you have good children. After getting good children, you have a good governance, you have a good environment, you have a good education, you have good health, because the original setup of you nurturing your kids is quite important. Ladies and gentlemen, my next speaker will extend a bit to some.
Okay, I think I'll just begin. My sure. My POI preferences are 5 minutes, so please don't pass. Yeah. So I'll begin in just 3, 2, and 1. So notice that what government teams want to argue is that, oh, we want to run away from, the imperfect nature of human, right? They want to run away from the ability for people to make mistakes. They want to run away from, individuals like being authentic and real. What we think they miss out and they do not understand is that these robots that they particularly want to put their trust in are also humanly programmed. What this means is that these robots are also oftentimes like likely to make mistakes simply because they're humanly programmed. The question is why? Here's the link: that when this information or data is like put into these machines, I think it's humans that draw from various experiences, like vast, like all through the world, like what experiences they have gotten, right? So those experiences are the ones they feed into this sort of like gadget in order to be able to decide what are, kind of like decisions it will make anyways. So in the event that those decisions are like derived from the experiences, we think for us on our side, we value experiences more than they're kind of like trying to run away. What does OG argue? OG comes and tells you that, oh, we think that crimes exist due to romantic relationships, crimes like commitment, financial kind of like crimes like domestic violence, stalking and all that. But we think if the debate is about crimes, then they forget that crimes also happen on their side. What crimes happen on their side? Crimes like attachment-based exploitation. These are human beings who have put this information there. They can also be able to manipulate emotionally. The question is why? Oftentimes, when this information is put into these like systems, these are humans who put it there. They can also choose sort of like corrupt the data simply because it's human intelligence working in artificial intelligence. It's the human being who has made that artificial intelligence. What does that mean? It means that if the human being can be corrupted, so does the artificial intelligence also be corrupted. So that does not stand. What does okay, they try to say that they are programmable and all that, and we agree that much as they're programmable, but they're humanly programmable. What does CG tell you? CG comes and says that, oh, we think that we need coexistence. They try to say that there has to be that kind of like counselor, that like these robots are going to be like counselors and advise you and all that. But they forget the complexity of these like human reactions are simply because they are diverse. Like notice that like people go through things like in different ways and people comprehend things in different ways. So you cannot assure me that this sort of like gadget is going to sort of like give me the best option. The question is why. It's simple, because these kind of like gadgets are also limited to the kind of to the kind of exposure that they've been given. They're only limited to the information that have been fed on. So if you want to sort of like say that, oh, we want to rely on this kind of like robot, I think you're just like literally relying on the human data that has been put in it. So by the fact that they actually also fail to comprehend these kind of like different complexities of life simply because they're diverse, I think it just makes no logical sense anyways, because they're humanly programmed and they also make mistakes. They try to say that, oh, there are better relationships. I think there's no aspect of better relationships. Why is this true? From our side, we value authenticity. We value people going through various experiences, and we value that experience. Why? Because it is from those experiences that these people can be able to be better individuals at the end of the day. What does the debate want us to do? I think the debate wants us to show two things to prove why this sort of like creation and access to these realistic androids is not good for government and also to the individuals. First, I want to engage on authenticity. Why is authenticity important in relationships? I think these relationships oftentimes like consist of things like trust, right? And this trust is built in the relationship through authenticness, right? We think these relationships are built on grounds of like ability to like reciprocate feelings and emotions, right? So we think that that is what they lose out from their side because we don't get all of those things from their side. Why is this important? I think that oftentimes when individuals are able to sort of like have that vulnerability and safe space for like them to deepen their connection, individuals are able to connect with these in the relationships they make even better. Why is this important? I think it is important to sort of like bring things like communication. The reason as why most of these relationships have issues and why maybe oftentimes they come to crimes that they try to say is because of lack of communication, is because of lack of trust, is because of lack of that vulnerability, that ability to sort of like have a safe space for communicating with your partner. And we think that all that cannot necessarily be achieved by, let's say, having to use some certain robots that are also fed on by human information, I think that becomes problematic from their side. So why is authenticity important? We think authenticity is important to sort of like build trust in relationships. We think when individuals are able to express themselves authentically, like I'm gonna tell you how I feel, and you're gonna tell me how you feel. I'm going to feel how you feel, and you're gonna feel how I feel. Like it's just natural, like human nature sort of like exists in that regard. So why is this important for personal growth? I think it is important because individuals get to have more real experiences. Like we get to experience life in a true and real way. And why do we value experience on our side? Because when you make a mistake after you being real and authentic, I think it is better for it is easier for you to sort of like cover up for that mistake. Or even if it fails out, you're easily sort of like going to get a solution to it in a more real and authentic way. Why is it important to the state? I think that from authenticity, like the image that I've showed you about authenticity, I think it is very, very important because when individuals are able to accept and embrace the value of authenticity in relationships, the value of realness and trueness, I think we get benefits like a healthy population mentally. Like people are going to be healthy mentally. Like people are not going to sort of like have to like be so many in hospitals in like the mental section simply because they have embraced that value of authenticity. Another thing is that the state can maybe spend its money in other important sectors, priority sectors. Another thing is what they try to say, building a stronger family and foundations. That is something we achieve more on our side as opposed to them. Why is this true? Simply because I've showed you why we value authenticity and why we value human experiences more real and having like more true engagement other than just having to run to robots and all that. Why is this important? I think it is important because we sort of like have a stable and functioning society. Like when your kids are brought up in a true relationship, they can be able to accept and value that relationship. They're also gonna look at that as the right way, and that means that they're also going to sort of like go and look for partners who are real and authentic. That means a better world, that means a better society, that means more cohesion socially and all that. I beg to use.
Okay. As the current speaker said, robots often make mistakes because they are humanly programmed due to the human experience. And later on, he says, we value experience. So we think there was a bit of contradiction there and a lot of it. People comprehend things in different ways. But when we look at the robots, we have already told you they are going to be programmed and they are updated. These robots are liable to being updated. That means the system can be updated in case of any errors. And to correct you, we actually mentioned Androids. I think you have an Android phone. You can check how it operates. So when you come and talk of authenticity and talk of a healthy population, I don't see where this stands, because if we have the androids that understand you, as it was described already if it already understands you, that means we are going to be having these androids in your hospitals. We're going to be having these androids everywhere you go. Why? Now, our characterization of a family, we brought it down to a family so that you understand it better. Now, if we build a stronger family, automatically, as he has already explained, the basis of any country, the basis of any development, the basis of any, I should say, due to lack of what, any civilized society must have, they must have that kind of connection. And being a family doesn't only mean a blood or that kind of connection in the same line, but we think that having these robots amidst the human beings, having these androids amidst the human beings, according to his maybe you didn't understand. But the thing was, having them in our midst, I think you must have heard about how Elon Musk is already planning to enroll those robot wives. Or we are also asking why robot husbands are not there, but we have had those rumors. You'll make research later in the day. But already we see that if already government commits to funding something, basing on the errors that you are claiming that these robots commit, but already, first of all, these robots are coming into existence due to non-satisfaction from partners. And because we believe human beings existed before the robots. So the robots, not human beings coming to supplement robots, but these robots are coming to supplement, they are supplementing, they are not replacing. We are not doing away with human beings, just like it was already said. We are not doing away with that kind of relationship, but we feel like this is very important because it is a supplement. It is just a supplement. So if you talk of how the robots make mistakes, we think it was due to the mistakes made by human beings, the negligence of the human beings that has led to the coming of the robots. So which means we cannot do away with that. Now, government cannot commit to something that cannot manage. And a government is a government. I think it was already described earlier as some people terming it as to look like an NGO or a charity organization. But government is government. That means they have a wider hand. So if they commit to funding something, there's no way they can go below their commitment. If government cannot have 5 billion to run the LC1 election, but they can compensate an individual 350 billion, don't you think it's just a matter of priorities? So if we decide to prioritize the androids, which of course automatically in the characterization, we already see that the androids, we are looking at how it is going to promote the humanitarianism. We are also looking at how it's going to provide that companionship in case, as it was already described, in case the partner is no longer meeting what is supposed to be, or in case there is a form of misunderstanding, because these robots they have intelligence. That's why they call them AI, artificial intelligence. That means they feel what you feel. To some extent, they interact with you. They can easily provide you the same solution as someone else. Automatically, it is not going to be perfect because they also came into existence because of the human beings not being perfect. So humans are socially created. We value human interaction and developing close personal relationships. Now, automatically, if at all you realize it is unfortunate that sometimes people realize this later, automatically, in case you realize a partner is cheating and you found out the real reason why this person was cheating, or you try to work on it. And of course, these robots, the AI, automatically that is what it is built for. So if you already realize someone is now planning to go for an AI or for an Android, I think it will mend that relationship. People we see it bringing families together, and this is where the basis of a family comes with the existence of the robots. When we see them, when we see the robots, how the androids are behaving, we think this will help also work on the mental on the mindset of the people, such that we go back to the core values of what we call a family, of which this is the major intention of the AI. Now we already see that the programming is already the programming will always be assessed after a particular period of time. Just like it was said before, it is a machine that is liable to reprogramming. We can program, and of course, if you're to interact with it, they came here. They said, no, why should we wait until I need something and I ask it? But we think that these robots and these androids are not going to be programmed according to maybe find a bit flexible to update. But if at all I'm bringing it for purposes of, like, we have people who have androids in their homes, which are purposely for cleaning. They do majorly chore work, but also we have others who have them for other reasons. So we think that we think that the android is going to be compelled to a particular thing. So you set it according to what you need. So if what you need is A, it will not be the same as what B needs. So we think that since the software is already subject to updating, we think that it is going to be updated according to what you want. Now, since the human brain is elastic, we think it is going to relate to this AI because the world is advancing and we are going to adjust. We are already adjusting. So with the coming of if government funds and we have this in existence, we think it is going to add more value to the community.
And 15 seconds in. They, they matter a lot. Look. Okay. Yeah, sort of. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. I think, Chair, we had to understand what then the debate has to be and what then was maybe like a major obligation of the opposition and maybe the government bench. I think there was an incentive of logically showing how then maybe funding this by the state looks problematic, or how then it looks problematic from the state or even to the society at large. Firstly, before I even engage what then they say, firstly understand that the state is like the state has like a major obligation to necessarily bring in things like that are better for the people or for the people under that state, or like are better for the state at large or at the nation at large. So there's an incentive of understanding whatsoever happens, either maybe the robots, even though they are not efficient, or even maybe when they're implemented, if then they are maybe better for the people, or maybe when they are not better for the people. Firstly, OG comes and claims that, hey, we need to have like these forms of things because maybe there are crimes like adultery, like maybe rape, defilement, and whatsoever. They also come and claim that, hey, we need to have them because maybe there are concerns that come maybe because of romantic relationships. And then that's what like they all like maybe they sort of talk about in the debate. But what then a rebuttal on a comparative looks like, if then the model they are trying to fight for is efficient enough. Because firstly, OJ tells you, even when then these things are put in place, they are programmed by a person. So at the end of the day, if then they are programmed up by a person, that person can necessarily want maybe those sort of machines to do whatsoever he needs. Firstly, they can be manipulated, which means they cannot be efficient enough. Even when then you update them, still they are non-efficient because at the end of the day, there are things that are made by people, even that there are things that are made by people, they are not things that maybe naturally happen. At the end of the day, the efficiency of these forms of model becomes like problematic at a certain point in time. What then CG actually talks about in the debate is like, hey, okay, we do not say that the human interaction shouldn't happen. They sort of come and say that, hey, we need to have like an incentive, like an extra solution to the problem, like maybe having like a counselor and what then has to happen. But what then like a rebuttal, maybe what then they understand, solutions have to be so intense so that they can solve the problem, the root cause. Firstly, you cannot solve a problem maybe by mere things because maybe I'm giving you an answer right now and maybe that's the answer and you make like irrational decisions because the answer has been given. What then has to happen with solving solutions is to understand like having the authentic that form of authenticity, because at the end of the day, this is what is needed in relationship. I have to be real for you to you. I have to understand, you have to understand me. You have to have like that form of maybe I will take you that form of realistic part, or maybe that form of authenticity at a certain point. So the ideology at the end of the day does not become even when like having like an incentive, because that will be like, for example, time wasted or maybe money wasted on things that are even not effective, even when they are maybe put in place. They are not going to work because maybe they do not answer the problem that is put in place. So that's how then it's problematic in their case. They come and talk about maybe things like good relationships. Hey, we need to have good relationships. But we do not understand like how then logically they lead to good relationships when you are just having a relationship out of pretense. Because now you do not have relationships are built out of feelings or out of emotions. But what then these things do, like for example, I will just type and say that, hey, I feel like maybe I want to do this, maybe do this and that. They give me what I can do, not based on my feelings, just based on maybe like what I want to hear or what I want to do. So then that makes the relationships like be fake in the society. That makes relationships to necessarily be like full of pretense, and that's where the good relationships they sort of talk about do not come in the debate. I think what then we as OO as CO to tell you is that we need to understand why then the state shouldn't fund. Firstly, to the state. We think the state has like a moral obligation like a good health population. Why does it have to people being productive, being people maybe creating jobs, people working like for the betterment of maybe of the state, of the nation at large, so that the economic development can come about? You think that that happens only if then people are realistic to themselves. If then we have like that form of realistic part, even in relationships that build strong families, even in relationships that build maybe friendship and whatsoever. The realistic part is something that has to attain, because people will not be like hypocritic to maybe their friends, so that at the end of the day they can backstab them because maybe they asked from AI and got that the information from AI because that's what they wanted. That's how their word looks like. On a comparative, in our world, you necessarily get things like a strong state that is built by people that are realistic, people that are honest, people that are people maybe that are united under one arm because they understand themselves, or because they are realistic, or they have like that real factor on their side. Secondly, I will take you, but not now. Secondly, you understand that even when these things look like, hey, it's just like a time wasted, and a money and time is money at large, and that's where maybe these guys come and talk about money. Understand that there's a priority that even when even when a state maybe has like a moral obligation or has like a social contract to its people, it has to maybe prioritize things that are better, things that bring development at large, not things that are maybe fishy because maybe a certain population or two people maybe in Uganda are feeling like they want to maybe coerce someone, or maybe they want to have like that romantic relationship with maybe a robot or whatsoever, or that like what they talk about. We think there are things that are necessarily important, or there are things that should be looked upon, or there are things that you should consider before you go to fishy things. Because hey, at the end of the day, there are things that are important to that, and things and the other better alternatives that can answer their concerns. They sort of talk about. So at the end of the day, you think that money is wasted in things that do not care. Things like we attain things like better social cohesion, because at the end of the day, people understand themselves. I think that's where the experience comes in. Understand that for a better relationship, you have to be experienced. You have to necessarily have what like you have to be experienced, maybe heartbreaks and whatsoever. Understand what then their side looks like. It looks like, hey, I will ask something, and they immediately take me to the solution, which means there's a certain process that I have failed to necessarily go through, which means I'm necessarily going to go to the end product. And when I go to the end product, I've lacked the experience. What then that looks like is that when maybe a time comes, maybe the experience that I lack is going to affect me. That's when we see people being fake. That's when relationships do not last. That's why we see even when the relationships are there, they are full of pretense. But then what looks like the relationships are real because they are built with an authentic, with maybe a realistic manner, or they are built with maybe a manner that actually people understand themselves. At the end of the day, okay, thank you. I rest my case. Sort of. I didn't say.